Good morning. I hope you're doing great, doing awesome in this lovely morning or lovely afternoon. Reading is one of the great habits that you should invest a lot of your time in. I know people are really occupied with so many things, but at some point in your life, you will realize the importance of reading. If we want to master our ability to speak, we need to learn how to produce language, and learning from other people is probably the best method we can go by in order to improve this important and significant skill of reading. If you want to communicate vocabulary, probably reading a ton of books is going to be a great idea to improve your ability to produce as many vocabulary as possible. If you want to write an email, of course, communicating to your friends is going to be through writing. And through writing, you will be able to use vocabulary and grammatical structures that come from your learning and your cognizance or cognition of or recognition of certain grammatical structures that you were impressed by in The Animal Farm or Agatha Christie's They Came to Baghdad, or one of the pioneering novels, or probably the 50 Shades of Grey. You never know. I recommend actually reading whatever kind of book that you have access to, no matter what kind of book that you're reading, as long as you're probably sustaining the skill of reading, that is going to ultimately come to fruition when it comes to achieving the target of your reading skills, being able to communicate effectively, being able to produce good academic writing, being able to produce good academic speaking skills and awareness of vocabulary. However, reading my professor used to say, is a process, and writing is a process. It's not a product. Now, you have to develop this habit, and luckily, when it comes to the ability to develop your reading skills, it's not going to come from reading the 7 steps to become an excellent reader. No, it's coming from reading so many pages. Like if you Google online right now, the average number of books the person can read before they die, you will find that on average people may read 4,500 books or 4,500 books. However, the majority of people might not reach to that threshold unless you're really a bookworm or an avid reader who has access to this number of books, and probably in the field of academia where they can go over reading so many sources and reading so many journals and books and publications and participating in publishing some of the books. So generally speaking, it's really important to realize the importance of reading, and for that purpose I have chosen a sample, actually, because we are not going to go over the whole book. It's going to take a century actually to finish reading and analyzing every piece of the structure of this book. And the book that I chose is The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg. It's one of my favorite books, actually, and I give this book to readers. It talks about how to improve your reading skills. It talks about how to improve whatever kind of habits that you have. However, there is a catch here, that while you're developing a new habit and reading a book about how to develop a new habit, this will contribute together to achieve probably one step awareness of the importance of reading and the importance of writing and the importance of consistently doing something. So I've chosen this book for that purpose. I give it intentionally to students because it tells them how to develop new habits, positive habits, not negative habits. And he draws on big literature from science and medicine and research on how to improve habit, and also it gives you a ton of vocabulary that might not be familiar to you. So you're learning vocabulary, you're learning about science and about developing a habit, and also you're reading something. So ultimately speaking, it's evidently a clear sample of good source of improvement to your vocabulary, to your skills, and to your education, ultimately speaking. In the fall of 1993, a man who would owe append much of what we know about habits, walked into a laboratory in San Diego for a scheduled appointment. He was elderly, a shade over 6 feet tall, and neatly dressed in a blue button-down shirt. So he provides a good narrative of the opening of chapter 1 by talking about a man who would append much of what we know. I want you to Google this word particularly, append. Append. It's a quite interesting word. His thick white hair, so شعره السميك الأبيض, would have inspired envy هنا معناها الحسد, at any 50th high school reunion. Arthritis caused him to limp. Arthritis هنا مرض اللي هو المفاصل, يعني التهاب المفاصل. Caused him to limp. هنا تلاحظ كلمة arthritis تستخدم كفاعل. Arthritis يستخدمها كفاعل هنا. Caused him to limp slightly as he paced the laboratory's hallways, and he held his wife's hand, walking slowly. Walking slowly دي يفصلها إن هذا ظرفية, جملة ظرفية, ماشيا ببطء. شلون المترجمين حابين يترجموها, يعني ينطونا فكرة. As if unsure about what each new step would bring. طبعا هنا as if unsure راح يعرج لنا فيما سيرد لاحقا انه ليش هو unsure about what is going to happen in the next step. It's quite important. About a year earlier, Eugene Poley, or EP, as he would come to be known in medical literature, had been at home in Playa del Rey preparing for dinner when his wife mentioned that their son Michael was coming over. Who's Michael? Eugene asked. Now, هو ابنه, وبهاي اللحظة سأل ومنو مايكل. طبعا هنا راح يصير اكو انتقالة. Your child, said his wife, Beverly. You know, the one we raised, اللي ربيناه. Eugene looked at her blankly. Who is that? He asked. Well, الظاهر هو يعني بدأ أعراض فقدان الذاكرة. The next day Eugene started vomiting and writhing with stomach cramps. Stomach cramps هنا اللي هي تقلصات أو أوجاع المعدة. Within 24 hours, his dehydration, لاحظ لي كلمة dehydration, كلش كلمة مهمة, dehydration. عندنا hydration, dehydration. هاي كلمة أحب أنه تحفظوها, يعني تتعلمها. Was so pronounced. هنا so pronounced مو لفظ, وإنما كان واضحا أو جليا, that a panicked Beverly took him to the emergency room. His temperature started rising, hitting 105 degrees as he sweated a yellow halo of perspiration onto the hospital's sheets. يعني خلى بقعة من التعرق صفراء أو هالة صفراء من تعرق. He became delirious, then violent, yelling delirious. هنا delirious. هاي الكلمة أيضا حاب نتعلمها. delirious يعني شوية مضطرب عقليا. Then violent, عنيف. Then yelling and pushing when nurses tried to insert an IV into his arm. To insert an IV into his arm. Only after sedation, بعد يعني التهدئة أو أعتقد نوع من الsedation ينطوا sedatives, نوع من المهدئات. Physician was a physician able to slide a long needle between two vertebrae in the small of his back and extract a few drops of cerebrospinal fluid. cerebrospinal fluid اللي هو سائل الحبل الشوكي. طبعا لاحظ هنا only after sedation was a physician able. ما قال only after sedation the physician was able، لأن only من نستخدمها هنا راح يعكس لنا الفعل المساعد قبل الفاعل. The doctor performed the procedure sensing trouble immediately. The fluid surrounding the brain and spinal nerves is a barrier against infection and injury. هذا يشكل نوع من الحاجز ضد الالتهابات والإصابة. In healthy individuals في الحالات اللي يكون بها الأفراد صحيين it is clear and quick flowing, moving with an almost silky rush through a needle. The sample from Eugene's spine was cloudy and dripped out sluggishly as it filled with microscopic grit. الميكروسكوبيك grit لازم نحفظها. لحد هاي النقطة هذه حقيقة درس بسيط وسامبل. احنا ما راح نخوض في غمار الكتاب كله لأنه ياخذ وقت من عندنا، بس راح أخلي رابط الكتاب. أريد تهتم بالقراءة، قراءة يعني شديدة أهمية لأي شخص حاب يكون عنده السلطة والوعي والسيطرة والذكاء. الذكاء مرات يجي حتى من القراءة، ما يجي من الوراثة، فهذه انتبهوا لها. أتمنى يكون نصيحة لكم للاهتمام بالقراءة وتحسينها، وتكون جزء من حياتكم اليومية، وتكون daily habit بالنسبة لكم. ربي يحفظكم. مدرب اللغة وليد خالد.